Hello everyone, welcome to Jennifer Sewing and Crochet. Today I have something really excited to share with you. For those of you who follow my YouTube channel and the Facebook group page that goes along with it, you'll recognize this quilt block. I first saw this block in a quilt that a friend from a Facebook quilting group that I belong to, she made the quilt that this quilt block is from. And I asked her where she got the pattern. I really loved the block itself. It is an 18-inch block. She had told me that she found the pattern in the American Patchwork and Quilting magazine. So that weekend, I liked the pattern so much that that weekend I went out and I found the copy of the magazine that the pattern is in, and it is this issue here. I knew it was the quilt block that I was looking for. I have always wanted to make a black and white quilt for our own king-size bed, and I had been saving black and white fabrics for several years, and when I found this quilt block pattern and the quilt, I knew what I was going to make for our bed. So now comes the exciting part. What I did is I wrote to American Patchwork and Quilting, and through their publisher, which is the Meredith Corporation, I was given permission to use the pattern that this quilt block is from to film a quilt block tutorial for you. So I will be showing you how to make this quilt block and the quilt that this is from. So let me get everything set up and I will show you the pattern and what we will do. Okay. So this is the magazine that the pattern is in. It is the American Patchwork and Quilting. This is the October 2019 issue 160. And the pattern itself is called Sparklers. And the designer is Corey Yoder. This is the pattern that my friend on my quilting Facebook group that I belong to. This is the pattern that she made, and I really fell in love with the pattern, the block pattern itself. I like the fact that it was based on an 18-inch block. Okay, so I'm first going to show you what you need to make this quilt itself, which is a 41-inch square quilt, and then it, like I said, the blocks are 18 inches. After I tell you what you will need for this particular quilt, I then am going to show you the quilt that I'm going to be using the block pattern for. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So your supplies and your materials that you're going to need. Let me zoom in here just a little bit. Hopefully we can see this a little bit better. Okay, hopefully we can see that. Okay, so your materials, your fabric is going to be based on a 42-inch usable fabric width, which is pretty basic for bolts of fabric. Okay. And then a great thing that American Patchwork and Quilting does, that in the back of the magazine, they have coloring diagrams. And what this does is this lets you plan out your colors that you want to use if you don't want to use the colors that are in the pattern itself. You're able to color in exactly what you want. I usually will print off maybe 4 or 5 copies of this, and then I'll color in what I want and where my fabric placements will be. In my case, I knew that I would be using different black and white fabrics. So all I had to do is figure out the placement that I wanted my black and white fabrics to be. Okay, so let's go back to the pattern. Okay, so then what you want to do is if you're not using yardage, you can gather fat quarters. So you will need 18 by 21 inch pieces or fat quarters. I don't know if I'm focusing right there. Okay, so she used an assortment of green, coral, aqua, and yellow. Okay, and then you will need 1.5 yards of the cream tone on tone, which is for her background. And that is for the blocks, your sashing, and your border around the blocks. Okay, then you are going to need a 1/2 yard of coral or whatever fabric color you choose for your binding. Then you are going to need 2 3/4 yards of backing fabric, and then you're going to need 49-inch square piece of batting. Okay, so a little tip that I like to do, I've also written it here directly in the magazine on the pattern, but I also like to take just a little cheat sheet and write down what my fabrics are going to be according to what they are in the magazine. For instance, pattern A, or excuse me, fabric A is green in the diagrams. So I will write in the magazine and on my little cheat sheet that green in the diagram, fabric A, is my black and white fabrics. And then for fabric B is going to be my white fabrics and is orange on the diagram. And then again, for the cream tone on tone will be solid black for mine. And then also coral that she used for the binding, mine will be solid black. That way I can just, while I'm working along, I know, okay, what fabric is this going to be? I can just look to my notes and know that the green in the diagram is my black and white fabric. It just helps me to keep it straight in my head. Okay, so what you're going to do is, if you are using fat quarters, you're going to gather your fat quarters and you're going to pair them into 4 complementary prints. I don't know why I have problems with that word. So you're going to choose one fabric from each of those pairs and you're going to use it in your star points and your chain of squares. Okay, so these are your star points and your chain of squares. And then you're going to mark those fabrics as fabric A. Or if you decide that you're making a quilt and all the blocks are going to be the same colors, so fabric A for every single block will be one color, fabric B for every single block will be another color, and then your background will be another color. You will mark those. Okay, so for your star points and your chain, you will mark that fabric A. Then you will take your your remaining fabric and you will mark those B. And that's going to be your center fabric and your diamond points. Okay? So from your fabric A, I have made notes for, I can always come back to these later and know that these are what I used for my pattern. So for your fabric A, you are going to cut 4 3.5-inch squares. For your next, you're going to cut 8 2 by 3.5-inch rectangles. So 2-inch by 3.5-inch rectangles. Then you are going to cut 12 2-inch squares. Excuse me. Okay. And what I like to do is I like to cut all my fabric at one time. That way I don't have to come back later to the next block, cut all the fabric, sew, go again, cut all the next fabric, and sew. I just cut it all out what I need at one time. Okay? And then for your B fabric, which is going to be white in my case, I also have a little note here that says refer to above. And what that means is in the cutting directions, the designer, Corey Yoder, she prefers to make her triangle squares larger than necessary and then trim them down to size. So for her method, she cut her squares at 2.5-inch squares instead of the 2 3/8-inch squares that it lists in the directions itself. So if you're using a pattern, always make sure that you read all your instructions first so you can see little notes like these. Myself, I prefer to cut them exactly what it says in the cutting directions. It's just preference. Okay? So for each B fabric, you're going to cut 1 3.5-inch square. You're going to cut 12 2-inch by 3.5-inch rectangles. And then you're going to cut 4 2 3/8-inch squares, or if you prefer 2.5-inch. Then you're going to cut 8 2-inch squares. Okay? Then from your print that will be in the background, in this case, hers is the cream. For your border strips, you will cut 2 2-inch by 41-inch border strips. Then you'll cut 3 2-inch by 38-inch sashing and border strips. 2 2-inch by 18.5-inch sashing, excuse me. Then for the blocks, you will cut 16 3.5 by 6.5-inch rectangles, 32 2-inch by 3.5-inch rectangles, 16 2 3/8-inch squares, or again 2.5-inch squares, and 162-inch squares. Okay, now the only difference from your cream tone-on-tone directions is that the measurements are for all that you're for what you're going to be cutting is for all 4 of the blocks. Okay, fabric A and fabric B, those are what you're going to be cutting out of each of your different fabrics. Okay, so fabric A will be the star points and the chain squares. Fabric B was your center and your diamonds. Okay, and that is for each square. If you're going to be using just the same colors per block, okay, I like to cut all my fabric out at one time, like this. Okay, so what I do, my quilt is going to be a king size quilt, and I plan on making my quilt 5. Let me zoom back out so we can see here. Where's my zoom? Or zoom, yeah, okay, zoom back out. So my quilt is going to be a king size quilt, and it's going to be 25 18-inch squares. So I plan on having it 5 18-inch squares down by 5 18-inch squares across, with at this point it will be 2-inch sashing strips between each block. That may change over time, but so far that is what I'm planning. Okay, so what I did, I know I am going to need 25 blocks. Okay, so I went ahead and I cut all my fabric. Okay, so I'm going to have 5 blocks of each fabric. So I have them all cut out and ready. So that will be for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, these are going to be my star points with the chain squares. And then for my block centers, I am using a white tone on tone, and these will be for all 25 of my blocks. They will be white in the center. Okay, and then for my background and my sashing and my borders and also my binding, I will be using solid black. Okay, the only thing I have not cut out at this point are my sashing strips and my borders, because I do not know what those are going to be, since I am just using the block itself to design my own quilt. Okay. So then, now what we're going to do is we are going to start assembling our blocks. At this point, if you do have any questions, please comment in the comment section down below, and I can help you with that. At the end of this portion of the video, what I am going to do is I am going to take pictures of what you will need for your blocks, just for this portion, for the four squares, and that finishes to the 41-inch quilt, and all the cutting directions for that. Okay, so I'll have that in a photo at the end of the video that you can refer to. Oh, excuse me. And then when on our next video, what we're going to do is we're going to start assembling the blocks. Okay? So please stay tuned for that next video. Like and subscribe down below. And again, if you have questions, please comment down below and I can answer those. Also, there will be the information on how you can purchase the magazine. There's going to be a link that will direct you to the magazine and I believe the pattern itself. And please stay tuned. We'll, in our next video, we'll, like I said, we will start the assembly of the blocks. This tutorial will take place over several different videos because there are so many steps involved to construct this 18-inch block. Okay. We will see you very soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.